not to speak of whales and dolphins specifically, but nature as a dynamic field of activity beyond the reach of politicians, image makers, and so forth and so on. Nature is the constant psychedelic companion of the human experience. I think, we know this. That's why we crowd into cities and build walls and keep nature at bay. If you go into nature alone and don't eat much and don't speak much, within 72 hours, the hills speak and the winds confer with you, and you are conveyed into an animate, caring, living, natural dynamic. But it's threatening to the ego. This is the first time in 2 hours I've used this word. But the ego is a maladaptive, tumor-like growth in the personality that has been inculcated into you by the toxicity of culture. It is literally the response to toxic culture is the growth of ego. The more toxic the culture, the more the ego is revered as a natural value within that culture. So responding to dolphins and whales and anthills and termite swarms and these kinds of things is an opening to the natural dynamic that's all around us. Many people never observe nature except when psychedelics force it upon them. But this is a very, I think if you feel afraid of psychedelics, but you want the juice that you may sense there, take up wilderness camping and do it assiduously. And though it's a slower process and you may not have specifically colored hallucinations, the conclusions that you will emerge with are essentially the same as the psychedelic voyager emerges from. And nature is deep, ordered, dynamical, and caring for the project of being. And so should we be. And the order that we seek is the natural order of our bodies and our minds in interface with the world, not the unnatural order of ideology, commodification, propaganda, and a misuse of communication. No, I think it's very difficult because the process of education, without anybody quite knowing where the crime was committed, has turned from a handing on of cultural values to a handing on of this neurotic behavior around commodification. And people are clueless, and they're being used and abused. Seemingly intelligent people behave in incredibly stupid ways. The phenomenon of the respectability of aimless shopping. Shopping is unconscionable. It's stupid. It's tasteless. It's murderous toward the earth. And yet, people who teach at Esalen will suddenly drop their guru persona and whip out the charge plate and head for Robinson's. What kind of thinking is going on here? They are clearly not alienated enough. Alienation may be for them just a stance, but where they're really comfortable is down at Barney's, racking up the charge card. Somehow the message has to be put across that there are no exceptions to the obligation to decommodify experience. And anybody who feels alienated from this orgy of consumerism is going to have to look elsewhere for their values. I feel blessed because I guess I'm just so alienated that it doesn't touch me. But recently, for some reason, I had to lay out my income for an attorney and say how much I spent every month on things like entertainment and so forth and so on. So he called me on the phone. He said, you declared $15 a month for entertainment. He said, based on your income, do you know how much would be a standard deduction for entertainment? And I said, how much? He said, $700 a month. I said, that's inconceivable to me. What kind of idiot would I be? And I put down the $15 because I knew you wanted something. But in fact, I don't think I spend $15 a month on entertainment. What is entertainment anyway? I suppose it just sounds like preaching a kind of monkishness, but what is the charm of all this crap? Can anybody explain it to me? I heard a story about the Dalai Lama. Let this ricochet around in your mind. The Dalai Lama came to Los Angeles, and so the committee that was there to receive him and make his visit comfortable wanted to do something with him in L.A. that would be uniquely L.A., but that would be amusing for Dolly. So they decided to take him to Rodeo Drive. And basically they just turned him loose with his translator and said, we'll meet you back here in an hour and a half and check it out. This is a unique place in American culture. So then after it was over and they were all having their double espresso or the Campari or whatever they were having, the Dalai Lama said, I want to thank you so much for making this experience available to me. I feel I understand Americans so much better now. I saw so many things I wanted. This is the Dalai Lama talking. He saw so many things he wanted. Well, if the Dalai Lama is not immune, my God, what chance have you and I? If the Dalai Lama can't hold this stuff back, you might as well buy that Hermes scarf. Just give up. Give them the $200 for the damn thing and enjoy it. Yeah. Well, as an old anarchist, I can tell you, efforts to organize anarchists are so fraught with contradiction that I wish you luck, and I'll make a small donation. But I don't think it can be done that way. I think. Yes, you will definitely give me $15 worth of entertainment per month.
I'm listening to this and I'm thinking what my father would say if I told him, yeah.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but I would never do what you are doing. This may be the ultimate teaching. Do not ever again spend money to see me. My God, how much income is going down the drain as the ultimate oral empowerment is given.
Yeah, you run it off.
Well, okay, as long as you take it as entertainment, that's fine. I have one more little story. I didn't tell you the story about the two rabbis, did I? good. This is my ending story for the afternoon. I don't present it as a summation, but it amuses me. For those of you who don't like Jewish jokes, you will notice as this joke is told that it is easily translated into a Zen mode, a Sufi mode. I just like the Jewish flavor. There were two rabbis, extremely advanced high rabbis, Talmudists, great men of accomplishment. And they were at temple. And one of them prayed. And he said, Lord, he stood up and he spoke aloud and he said, Lord, I am nothing. And then he sat down and the other guy got up and he said, Lord, I am nothing. And there was a guy there sweeping the floor, a custodial person. And he thought, well, people are praying. Get a prayer in here. So he stood up and said, Lord, I'm nothing. And the first rabbi looked at the second rabbi and he said, so look who thinks he's nothing? That's it. That's a story about the imagination. The time wave is a variable wave scaled against time and can be scaled against very large amounts of time, even amounts of time larger than the life of the universe, thousands, millions of times larger than that. And you might ask, what's the point of scaling a temporal description over periods of time so vast that there is no reason to assume they ever existed? Well, the answer is that at these transition points, these dramatic shift points, the software automatically, as in the course of running the algorithm, keeps track of days to end, until you get down here to a hypothetical end point. Even if this is not billions of years, but trillions of years, it will keep track of this day count number. And what we discovered to our bewildered amazement was these day counts were almost always prime numbers or the product of two primes.
What are you measuring again?
Well, I'll answer your question, but it isn't relevant to what I'm talking about. What this is measuring is the ebb and flow of novelty and habit. And you've actually led me back to the main track, so we'll get serious and get out a pointer. That's always a sign that we're really serious. I don't want to give my ordinary time wave lecture because I've given it enough that the meme is actually established in the culture, and there are dozens of tapes of it and written versions and fights on the internet, and so why should I explain it to you all over again? I'll just assume that in the course of talking about specific issues that relate to it, you will pick up the rules of the game. And then if you're just too excruciated by your confusion, you can ask a question, and I'll try and answer it. The basic assumption is there is a quality to reality which science has overlooked. Some people in the East have called it Tao. I want to divorce myself from the freight of that tradition, and I want to call it novelty. Novelty is the quality in nature that seeks complexity. That's what it is. And its countervailing force is called habit. So what I'm proposing to you is that we live in a universe ruled by two fundamental forces that are larger than physics and electromagnetism and all of those good things. And these two forces are habit and novelty. And in every situation, whether it lasts a millisecond or a billion years, the struggle between these two tendencies of the universe can be discerned. Now, it's pretty self-explanatory what these terms mean, but I'll run through it. Habit means repetition of previously established pattern, continuation of a equilibrium situation, a tendency for a system to degrade entropically under the aegis of the second law of thermodynamics, a conservative tendency, a preservationist tendency, habit, right? For crying out loud. Okay. The other thing is novelty, the opposite of habit. What is novelty? It's the new, the untried, levels of complexification previously unachieved, unusual connectivity, creativity, surprise, novelty. And these two things are locked in struggle over vast scales of time. Notice I did not say eternally locked in struggle. They are not eternally locked in struggle, because the good news is novelty is winning. Novelty is winning. If you get big enough chunks of time, though there may be vicissitudes, ups and downs, ultimately the situation ends up more novel than it started out. Ilya Prigozhin, who got the Nobel Prize for work in non-equilibrium thermodynamics, called this the principle of order through perturbation, a counterintuitive phenomenon in physical chemistry, because for a very long time, one of the strongest held faiths in physics was that the universe is undergoing thermodynamic degradation. In other words, everything is tending to fall apart. Prigozhin showed that this is not true, that even in physical systems, there can be simple physical systems, there can be spontaneous mutation to higher states of order. So what's really going on in the universe is a struggle between these two tendencies. Biology represents the emergence of a very novel set of chemical strategies for the preservation and maintenance of novelty. The emergence of higher animals and culture and language and technology, these things are also novel strategies building on previous achievements in the novelty department, building toward our dear selves. And one of the interesting things about this kind of thinking is it gives a new importance to the human world. Science will tell you that we're lucky to be here and we're simply the awestruck witnesses to some kind of incomprehensible thing that has nothing to do with us anyway. Novelty theory would say, no, human complexity represents at this point the apex of accomplishment in the domain of novelty, and hence somehow the cutting edge of universal evolution in this moment in space and time has come to rest in ourselves.